Welcome, everyone. My name is Sharon Shelton. I'm the Vice President at Intrinsic, focusing on marketing. And I'm joined by Andrew Moravati, who is our Chief Solutions Architect. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day so that we can show you some really cool functionality that we just introduced in Informer 5.1, and specifically multi-tenancy. For those who are unfamiliar with Intrinsic, we've been in the software business for over 30 years now. Informer was introduced in 2001 and version 5 was released in late 2017. So our latest version really simplifies the process of accessing, cleansing, and blending data from multiple sources so that reports and dashboards can be generated and pushed out for interactive, dynamic exploration and analysis. Right now, we have over 1,500 organizations worldwide using Informer. We work with over 20 partners in multiple industries. We work within higher education, insurance, manufacturing and distribution, public safety, lots of different industries, specifically through our partners. And we are consistently rated highly by our customers, which is what we're most proud of. Database trends and applications, featured customers, we're in several different reports. Software Advice, which is a Gartner company. We are consistently rated highly for ease of use, for things like self-service and competitiveness when compared to other BI solutions. And there's tons of content, tons of videos and case studies and third-party reports all on our website if you'd like to learn more. At this point, I'll go ahead and toss it over to Andrew so that he can give you a peek into Informer and then go into exactly how multi-tenancy works.
Oh, hey, welcome everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the Informer business analytics software and how software hosts can deliver robust data analytics to their customers via the Informer platform. I'm going to demonstrate to you how easy it is to both create content and more importantly to add new clients and maintain those clients and the content of those clients from one interface and one installation. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a scenario where I'm going to design some content, I'm going to add a new customer, and I'm going to pass that content along to that customer. So I'm now logged into manager.mycloud.com, which is a fictitious website that I have running here for the demo. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in and just show you a little bit around Informer. I'm going to start from the content that we've already created and the one we were most interested in demoing today, and that is the sales dashboard. If you take a look at this dashboard, I've got a few cool KPIs up here. I've got total sales for all time for my, this is off of demo data. This isn't going to be the data that is going to show up when I deploy it to my new customer, obviously. And then I've got my total sales KPI. I've got the largest order we ever have received. We've got the average order size that we received. These are in dollar amounts. From my data set, I calculated days late per order, and I can now see which one of my shipping providers is the latest, and ironically, it's Speedy Express. I have another visualization here, which is the total value of all the orders broken down by order month. And one of the things that I can do from this dashboard is I can change this interval if I want to. This is now I'm an end user. I'm not editing it. So if I want to look at the quarters, or if I want to look at, say, the month of year, and determine that in my test data here, April is the greatest month for sales, I can do so. And it's very easy to revert back to the visualization that was there before. And so also what we have maps where I've got the representation of the different countries on the globe from our foreign customers, as well as the representation of the orders in the United States. And so if I decide to drill into, say, Brazil and go ahead and click on here, I can pivot by customer city, and I can see where most of the orders in Brazil came from. Turns out to be Rio de Janeiro. Another thing I can do from this particular spot is I can view the data that backs that particular group of Brazilian orders, and I also can export that data if I wish. So there's a lot of capabilities with these dashboards, and my customers are going to be very pleased with the flexibility and the amount of data that's been given to them. I wanted to show you briefly where this data comes from. It comes from a data set that I've designed for the customer, and that's just basically all of their sales data. Informa can handle a lot of data, so there's no reason for me to say filter to query this data by maybe just this year or last year. I can query all of it, and I can go ahead and decorate that data with various calculations and so forth. So if we just take a look quickly at the makeup of this data set, this comes from a variety of tables in our database that we're using. We've got the orders table, the customers table, order details, salesperson, and shippers. All of those are parts of the database query that makes up this particular data set. But this data set didn't have everything I needed into it, and it also wasn't laid out quietly in the structure that I wanted. So one of the things that I did was, since my order details are basically line items on invoices for orders, I went ahead and I collapsed those orders, those detail items per order. And so what I've got is I've got arrays per order. So for instance, for this particular order, there were 4 products, and these were the prices that they cost. And a bunch of other calculations that I've added here. I added the net price per line item, as you can see here. There's the net price. I've also got the order total, where I total up all those net prices. I also calculated days late by taking the date that the customer required the product and the date it was actually shipped, and subtracted the required date from the ship date, and I came up with a days late calculation. And finally, I've got 2 find and replaces, because I wanted to be able to map the United States, and in our data, the United States is represented as USA, but I wanted it to be represented as United States of America. So I've manipulated some data, I've rearranged it a little bit, and what ends up happening is when I refresh this data, it runs out to the database, it pulls all that data back, and then it puts it in the format that I need. So this is the data that I built my dashboard from. What ends up happening is I've built myself a curated data that ends up being the single source of truth and will be applicable for the customer when I push it down to the customer. All I'll need to do is go to the data source that backs the SQL query and change the connection information from my test data source to the live one. So this is a connection to my test data source right now, and that's what we're going to change when we get to implement the customer. And then finally, I wanted to make sure that only certain teams within the customer's organization could see particular data sets and reports, and so I've created a bunch of teams: accounting, call center, executives, and order takers. And what I did with my dashboard that I just showed you was I went ahead and I shared that dashboard to the executives team. So all those pieces are in place. So I want to describe to you now what might be some of the issues that you would encounter if we were just going to have one installation per customer. So managing multiple software deployments. In this scenario, let's say your company has decided to host a complementary BI software offering to your cloud offering, and you want to have 100 deployments to undertake, and at some point you will have 100 upgrades to perform. This is in a scenario where you're installing and hosting 100 installations. You'll have 100 units of hardware resources to allocate, meaning maybe you can only take up a quarter of a server per installation. So the unit of hardware resource would be 0.25 in that scenario. So basically, you have a potentially big headache. Adding a single BI deployment may involve requisitioning new hardware or rack space, allocating existing hardware, installing software, configuring software, copying pre-created reports, securing the reports, adding users, and configuring an internet domain. What I'm here to show you today is how we can simplify this particular problem. So let's set up a new customer in Informa 5.1. The first thing that I want to show you is that with multi-tenant, you can host dozens of clients on one Informa installation. This is the manager interface for this particular Informa installation, and right now we've got in our tenants list, we've got 3 tenants. So what I'm going to do is walk through the procedure of how I can set up a brand new customer named Acme Solutions and how quickly we can get them up and running. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on New Tenant, and I need a license key for this tenant. So we would go over to our Manager app, we would copy the license for Acme Corp to the clipboard, and we paste it in here. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to identify them as Acme Solutions, and their ID is going to be Acme. And since I've already created that dashboard and others, I'm going to copy that the content that I've already created from the Manager app where I was in, so that when Acme is being created, all of the data set and reports and everything and teams will be pushed into it. So I go ahead and I hit save, and that's how quickly that information is created. There's a couple of things we need to do to set up Acme Solutions. First thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we point our data source at the live data for Acme Solutions. So I'm going to go over here and edit the connection string, and I'm going to point at their data using their password. I'm going to test the connection, make sure that it works. It does. And now we've connected to their live data. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the data set that we copied has been refreshed. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run that query, and now we're going off of the live data. And now we've seeded there with the live data. And let's just go look at our data set, our dashboard, and see that indeed it has been updated with the customer's data, and their live data is current. So we've now made sure that our customers' reports are going to point at their data. So now we need to make sure that we import our customers, the users in. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook up an LDAP domain that we might have set up for them. And we support Active Directory, SAML, and other types of authentication schemes. We're just going to call this Acme Corporate, put in the LDAP information. And that looks good. And then we just need to scan our users in. And we're going to import our users from LDAP. The user class is org person, and we're going to enable those users so that they can log in immediately. And then we've scanned our users. Now we want to make sure that we add the appropriate users to our appropriate team. 2 users that we're going to do today are going to be Bender and Amy. I'm just holding down the command key to multi-select. I'm going to go ahead and add those 2 users to the executives team. And then one final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the login domain that they're presented with by default when they try to log in is going to be the Acme Corporate login domain. And so now we're done. Acme can go ahead and log in. I'm going to go ahead and log in as Acme. I'll log in as Bender. And I can get to my dashboard. And that's as simple as it can be. There's not much more to it. Just to show you that how our security is going to filter out people, I'm going to try to log in as another person. I'll log in as Fry, where I can get in, but I can't get to the dashboard I was just on. And you can see if I go to reports, I don't have access to any reports. So And that's basically it. Now, one other thing that I wanted to show you is that a lot of the stuff that we just did can be automated through the REST API. So the last thing that I wanted to show you was that you can hit the REST API and add another tenant. The tenant in this case is going to be the Dover Air Force Base. They've signed up, and maybe through some automated scenario, I've decided to implement them in my multi-tenant. So all I need to do then is go and hit the REST route that adds the tenant. And once I've done that, I can go ahead and refresh this, and you'll see that I've got the Dover Air Force Base all set up. It's been seeded with the manager, the manager information, the data sources and stuff that we set up, and we can log in and immediately start using it. So that's all you got to do in a multi-tenant scenario. I'll pass it back to Sharon.
Thank you, Andrew. Let's see if there are any questions that have come in. Let's see, one, can you describe the practical application that multi-tenancy offers to single campus community colleges?
The multi-tenant aspect of Informer is designed for sort of resellers to host multiple clients. There are a lot of benefits that to a community college that Informer can offer, but the specific multi-tenant part, I don't think it's going to apply, because since a particular college would just be a single user. Probably, if you wanted to say partition out the departments of a college or something like that, you probably wouldn't use separate tenants. You would probably go ahead and you'd probably just create teams around those particular departments, like we've done here. I hope that answers the question.
Right, yeah. And just to reiterate that, there's a lot of new features and functionality that have come out in 5.1. This is just one piece of functionality that is particularly applicable to our partner ecosystem. But like Andrew said, there are things that have come out in 5.1, like mapping suites and some business process improvements, workflows, streamlining, and all kinds of cool stuff. So this is particularly around multi-tenancy. Another question, any limit on the amount of tenants?
No, there's no limit on the amount of tenants. The idea is basically a single installation of Informer can be clustered. So there could actually be many Informer processes running, and you could put a load balancer in front of that, and as long as the resources are there, you could handle as many tenants as you need to. What's nice about the multi-tenant aspect versus an installation per customer is that you may have 100 customers, but you may only ever have 14 individuals across those customers logged in at any one time. You don't need to necessarily run 100 processes in order to serve those. And so what ends up happening here is that you would run a scaled Informer that could handle potentially 14 or 15 simultaneous logged on users, depending on obviously what metrics you guys have. And so you can greatly scale down the amount of hardware that you need, whilst continuing to be available for all 100 customers, even though you probably only going to have 20 or less on at a time. Essentially, all of the customers share the resource pool.
One other question is, can you show how the data populated the data set? So I think that's just showing how to add the data sources that populate the data sets that got you to the dashboard.
Sure.
Just show that interface. Yeah, how you did that.
Yeah, I can make a dashboard data set real quick. There's a number of different ways to do it. What we end up doing with these mappings and everything in the data sources is we basically model the database schema, and we enable you or someone else to come in and sort of give friendly descriptions to the field names. Now these have been already cleaned up, so like ship name, ship space name, that sort of thing. So all you really need to do to make a data set, I'll make an employees data set, how about that, is just open up the data set designer, and we'll say just go ahead and do that. The data source is app schema. We'll click on the employees table, and it's going to just literally go ahead and populate with all of the fields that you want to add. So I can just add the first name, the last name, where they live, maybe what country they live in. You know, I can put their title in there and just hit close, and then all of a sudden my data is in there. If I want to say make a friendly display name for the first name and last name, I could go ahead and I can add a calculated field and call this display name, and just, you know, put first name space last name, and then I've got, you know, I've now added that to my data. And then all it does is when you once you've designed the data set, it just runs the query and it pulls the data in. Now the employee list is probably going to be static or not very changing in a lot of organizations, but some it may change, you know, within the hour, depending on how big the organization is. So, you know, you can always manually, if you're the owner of the data set, go in and click refresh, and it'll go ahead and it'll run your database query. But what can happen with this data set is that you can go ahead and you can schedule a job to refresh that data set. So we just create one called refresh the employees list that goes ahead and refreshes the job, and then once it's done and I save it, I can go in and I can schedule that, you know, to run in whatever interval I want. I can run it every day at 2:25 p.m. for instance, and it'll just go ahead and it'll refresh on that scale, schedule. That's pretty much it. And you know, you can also just type in a SQL statement if you want in order to make a data set. That's one other way to do it. And I'll just quickly say, you know, select star from orders. That would be I just always name it what my selection is. You don't have to name it that, but you know, if you already have your SQL statement done, it's as simple as just typing your SQL in and running the query, and it goes. So I mean, there's a lot of videos and documentation on our website about how to create data sets and what the capabilities are.
Is there a way to copy dashboards and reports for use in different teams as you did in the new tenant example? If so, could they be changed just for that team's use or purpose?
Sure. Okay. Well, there's a couple of different use cases to do that. First of all, I don't have the feature isn't completely finished yet, but we are going to have an import-export feature where you can go ahead and you can go to a particular report, say the sales dashboard, and you can go ahead and you can add to bundle or download as bundle, and then you could just upload it and assign it to another team. But what I think is a little, which is a little cooler than that, is let's say, for instance, let's go into Acme, because Acme's got current data. One thing that you can do, and I apologize if this is going to take too long. That's the wrong domain. Is you can go ahead and you could have your teams, and you could have domestic, and you could have foreign. And then you can go ahead and you can add to foreign, you could add, let's say, vendor. And to domestic, we'll add fry. All right, so where I'm going with this is I'm going to make one dashboard, and it is just going to be, just for the purposes of showing how this works, this is just going to be orders by nation. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to add charts that show the customer's country. All right, so that's just going to show all the countries represented by all the customers. And that's a pretty meaningless dashboard. But one of the things that we can do is we can go into the data set all sales and we can create filters. And one of the filters that we could create is domestic. So we'll save that filter as domestic orders. And then I will create another filter and this will be foreign orders. So now I've got these two filters on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this report to the foreign team. And I'm going to I can't figure out how to do what I want to do. This is an experimental build, but let me just do some hand waving. So one of the things that I can do is I can share to the domestic team, and I could put the domestic filter on that share, and I can share to the foreign team, and I can put the foreign filter on the domestic on the foreign team. I can put the foreign filter on the foreign team, and then when the domestic team logs in and looks at the dashboard, they'll just see the domestic orders, and when the foreign team logs into the dashboard, they'll just see the foreign orders. So you can use one dashboard for different teams with different sets of data, all coming from the same data set with filters, and they can't do anything with that filter. They can't remove it. So you wouldn't necessarily need to copy the dashboard and make a new one for a new team. You could use the same data with just the access filter and use the same dashboard, and you would arrive at the same conclusion.
Excellent. Okay, I hope that answered your question. If you'd like to see a little bit more about that, just let me know and we'll set something up. Great. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating in the webinar. Let me know if you have any questions or would like a free trial so that you could see how this would work in your environment. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for attending.